The jungle looks different at night, becomes something alive, something that watches you. And when you're flying 100 feet above it in a Huey with no lights, no instruments you can trust, just following traces and explosions and radio voices screaming for help, the jungle stops being terrain and becomes this breathing, waiting thing that wants to pull you down into it. I'm Warrant Officer First Class Daniel Cross, 24 years old. From a small farming town in Iowa where the biggest thing that ever happened was the county fair. 2 years ago, I was flying crop dusters over cornfields. Now I'm flying UH-1 Hueys on night medevac missions in Vietnam, pulling wounded soldiers out of landing zones you can barely see, under fire you definitely can't see. They call us dust-off, the call sign for medical evacuation helicopters. When someone gets hit in the jungle and needs immediate extraction, they call for dust-off. We come get them, day or night, hot LZ'd or cold, doesn't matter. That's the mission, that others may live, like the motto says. Sounds noble when you say it like that. Sounds like something out of a war movie. The reality is uglier. The reality is flying blind through the dark, hoping the guy on the ground giving you directions isn't disoriented, hoping the LZ isn't too small, hoping the trees aren't too tall, hoping the enemy fire doesn't hit something critical, hoping you don't crash in the jungle and become just another emergency for the next dust-off crew. I arrived in Vietnam in March 1968, right after Tet. The offensive had just ended and casualties were still high. They needed medevac pilots desperately. Needed anyone who could fly a helicopter, really. The training was fast, too fast. But there was a war on and men were dying and they needed pilots now. Day missions were bad enough. Landing in hot LZs with VC or NVA shooting at you, the door gunners firing back, the crew chief loading wounded while bullets tore through the thin aluminum skin of the helicopter. Every mission knowing that one lucky shot could bring you down. Night missions were worse. Everything that made day missions dangerous got multiplied in the dark. You couldn't see the terrain, couldn't see the threats, couldn't see the wounded soldiers you were trying to save until you were right on top of them. But the wounded don't stop needing evacuation when the sun goes down. If anything, the VC liked to hit at night. They knew we couldn't see, knew the jungle was their territory after dark. So we flew at night, into the dark, into the jungle, into landing zones marked by strobe lights and desperation. October 15th, 1968. I got a call for a night medevac mission that I should have refused. Should have. But you don't refuse, you just go. The call came through at 21:30 hours. Full dark, no moon. Infantry company in contact with NVA forces, multiple casualties, needed immediate evacuation. The LZ was in the Central Highlands, dense jungle, hills and valleys where helicopters went to die. The grid coordinates put them about 40 miles northwest of Pleiku, middle of nowhere, middle of Indian country, where the NVA owned the night. My crew was exhausted. We'd already flown 4 missions that day. But there were wounded soldiers out there, and I was the only medevac pilot available. So we went. My co-pilot was Chief Warrant Officer Rodriguez from Texas. Good pilot. Steady. Been in country 6 months, which made him a veteran in Vietnam terms. My crew chief was Specialist Davis from Detroit, and my medic was Specialist Peterson from Minnesota. All good men, all exhausted. We took off from Pleiku at 21:45 hours. The Huey lifted into the darkness, and immediately we were blind. No horizon, no reference points, just the instruments glowing green in the cockpit and the sound of the rotors beating against the night air. Flying at night in Vietnam wasn't like flying at night in the States. No lights on the ground to orient yourself, no cities glowing, just darkness, complete and total darkness, except when artillery would light up the sky or flares would drift down. The radio crackled. Dust-off 27, this is Bravo 6. We have 8 urgent casualties. LZ is hot, receiving small arms and RPG fire. Copy that, Bravo 6, I responded. What's the LZ marked with? Strobe light, west edge of the LZ. Trees are high. Maybe 80, 90 feet. It's going to be tight. Of course it was. It was always tight. Rodriguez checked the map with a red-filtered flashlight. Red light so you wouldn't ruin your night vision. Not that we had much night vision to begin with. LZ should be coming up in about 5 minutes, he said. Bearing 285. I adjusted course, flying by instruments in the dark, trusting the gauges, trusting my training, trying not to think about the trees we couldn't see or the mountains or the enemy fire. The infantry company was still in contact. I could hear the firefight on the radio. Automatic weapons, explosions, officers calling for fire support, wounded crying out in the background. Dust off 27, be advised we're taking heavy fire. Multiple enemy positions around the LZ. We'll suppress as much as we can, but you're going to be exposed. Copy that, I said, like there was any other answer. We came up on the LZ. I could see muzzle flashes in the jungle, traces arcing through the darkness, green traces, enemy fire, red traces, our guys firing back. The whole area was a light show of death, and somewhere in that chaos, there was a small clearing with wounded soldiers who needed us. I've got the strobe, Rodriguez called out. A tiny blinking light in the darkness. That was our target. That was where we needed to land. The trees around the LZ were tall, too tall. I'd have to come straight down, vertical descent, no room for error. If I drifted into the trees, we'd crash. Going in, I said. I brought the Huey down. Slow, controlled. Every instinct screaming to abort, to get out of there, to not fly into that chaos. But there were 8 wounded soldiers down there. 8 men who'd die if we didn't get them out. The enemy fire intensified. I could see the traces now, green lines cutting through the darkness. Some passing under us, some over us, some hitting us. Taking hits, Davis called from the back. The Huey shuddered, warning lights flickered, but the engine kept running. The rotors kept turning. We kept descending, 50 feet, 40, 30. The trees were right there. I could feel them more than see them, could sense their presence in the darkness. 20 feet, 10. The skids touched down, hard landing, no time for finesse. We're down. Load them up, I shouted. Chaos, that's the only word for what happened next. Pure chaos in the darkness. The infantry was rushing wounded to the helicopter. I could see them in the dim light spilling from the cargo bay. Men carrying other men. Some of the wounded were screaming. Some were silent, which was worse. The enemy fire was concentrated on us now. We were the target. Big, loud, stationary targets sitting in a clearing while they shot at us from the tree line. Davis and Peterson were pulling the wounded into the helicopter, moving fast, but not fast enough, never fast enough. Each second on the ground was another chance for an RPG to hit us, for a bullet to find the fuel tank, for everything to go wrong. How many? I shouted back. 4 so far, Peterson yelled. 4 more coming. The door guns were firing. Davis had his M60 blazing into the tree line. Rodriguez was firing his M16 out the co-pilot window. Spent brass raining down on the cockpit floor. An RPG streaked past, maybe 10 feet from the tail rotor. Close enough that I felt the heat. Close enough that if it had been 10 feet to the left, we'd all be dead. We need to go. Now, Rodriguez was shouting. Not without all 8, I shouted back. More wounded coming, some walking, some being dragged, some being carried. I saw one soldier, couldn't have been more than 19, being carried by 2 of his buddies. His legs were gone, both legs, just gone. And he was conscious, screaming, looking down at where his legs used to be and screaming. They loaded him in. Peterson immediately started working on him. Tourniquets, pressure bandages, morphine, trying to keep him alive long enough to get to a hospital. 7, Davis shouted. One more. Where was number 8? Bravo 6. Where's the last casualty? I called on the radio. He's coming. 30 seconds. 30 seconds. A lifetime when you're sitting in a hot LZ. The enemy fire was getting heavier, more disciplined. They were ranging in on us. The rounds were getting closer. A bullet punched through the plexiglass next to Rodriguez's head. The glass exploded. He ducked, cursed, kept firing. We can't stay here, he shouted. 20 more seconds. The last casualty came running out of the tree line, not being carried, running on his own, clutching his side. He collapsed at the skid. Davis jumped out, grabbed him, pulled him into the helicopter. We've got all 8. Go, go, go. I pulled collective, maximum power. The Huey strained. We were overloaded. 8 wounded, plus crew, plus fuel. The helicopter wasn't designed for this much weight. We lifted, slowly, too slowly. 5 feet off the ground, 10 feet. The trees were right there. We were rising, but also drifting. The wind was pushing us toward the tree line. Watch the trees, Rodriguez shouted. I corrected, overcorrected. We swayed in the air. The wounded in the back were sliding around. Peterson was trying to hold them steady while treating them. 15 feet, 20. We cleared the trees. Barely. The skids brushed the top branches, and then we were out. Out of the LZ, climbing, accelerating, getting away from the fire. But the fire followed us, tracers arcing up from the jungle, following our exhaust, following the sound of the rotors. Something hit the engine, hard. The whole helicopter shuddered. The engine RPM dropped. Oil pressure warning light came on. Engine hit, I called out. We're losing oil pressure. Can we make it to Pleiku? Rodriguez asked. I checked the gauges. Oil pressure dropping fast. Engine temperature rising. We were 40 miles from Pleiku. No, I said, we need to set down, now. Where? There's jungle everywhere. I looked down. Nothing but darkness. Nothing but jungle. No clearings. No safe places to land. In the back, Peterson was working on the casualties. The kid with no legs was still screaming. Others were moaning. One was silent. Already dead or unconscious, I couldn't tell. We'd gotten them out of the LZ. But if the engine failed completely, if we crashed in the jungle, they'd all die anyway. We'd all die. I've got to try for that firebase, I said. Firebase Custer. It's about 15 miles northeast. 15 miles. The engine wouldn't last 15 miles, but what choice did we have? I turned northeast, pushed the engine as hard as I dared, every second waiting for it to seize completely, waiting for the rotor to stop turning, waiting to fall into the jungle. 10 miles. The engine was screaming, literally screaming. Metal grinding on metal, temperature redlining. 5 miles. Oil pressure at 0. Running on nothing but momentum and prayer. I can see it, Rodriguez shouted. Firebase Custer. 2 o'clock. Artillery flares lit up the sky. I could see the firebase, perimeter lights, the landing pad. 3 miles. 2 miles. The engine was dying. I could feel it. Feel the power dropping off. Feel the helicopter starting to descend despite maximum collective. We're not going to make it to the pad, I shouted. I'm setting down outside the perimeter. That's a minefield. I know. 1 mile. The engine failed completely. Just stopped. The rotor was still turning from auto-rotation, but we were falling fast. I saw a clear area outside the firebase wire. Maybe it was clear. Maybe it was mined. No choice. We hit hard. The skids crumpled. The helicopter bounced, tilted, crashed down on its side. And then silence. Just ringing in my ears and the sound of wounded men groaning in the darkness. We were down, crashed outside Firebase Custer. The firebase lights showed us about 50 yards from the perimeter wire. "Everyone out!" I shouted. "Get the wounded out!" This thing could burn. Davis kicked open the cargo door. We started pulling the wounded out, moving them away from the helicopter in case the fuel tanks ruptured and caught fire. The firebase had seen us crash. Soldiers were running out, medics, infantry for security. They helped us carry the wounded to the wire, through a safe lane in the minefield that we couldn't see in the dark. 8 wounded soldiers. All of them made it to the firebase alive. The kid with no legs was still breathing, still conscious, looking at me with these terrified eyes as they carried him to the aid station. "You saved us," one of the wounded said as they loaded him on a stretcher. "Thought we were going to die out there." I didn't respond. Couldn't. I was shaking too hard. Adrenaline crash. Delayed fear. Call it what you want. My hands were shaking so bad I couldn't hold them steady. Rodriguez was checking himself over, blood on his face from the plexiglass that had shattered, otherwise unhurt. Davis had a cut on his arm from something. Peterson was untouched physically, but looked shaken. The Huey was totaled, lying on its side, engine destroyed, main rotor bent, unrecoverable. They'd have to destroy it in place. That was my 3rd helicopter in 6 months. 3rd one destroyed. I was running out of helicopters faster than the Army could replace them. The firebase commander, a captain whose name I didn't catch, debriefed us, asked what happened. I told him, Hot LZ, multiple casualties, engine hit, crash landing. "You got all 8 out alive," he said. "That's what matters." Maybe, but I'd also lost another helicopter, and we'd nearly died getting those 8 out, nearly crashed in the jungle where no one could have gotten to us. The math didn't work out. 3 helicopters and almost 4 crews to save maybe 60 wounded soldiers over 6 months. How many more helicopters could I lose? How many more near crashes before the crash killed us? They flew us back to Pleiku the next morning. We got a new helicopter, a new Huey fresh from the depot, shiny, undamaged, ready to be destroyed by enemy fire like all the others. We flew our first mission in the new bird that afternoon, another medevac, another hot LZ, another load of wounded soldiers who needed immediate evacuation. And I did it, went in, got them out, because that was the mission, that was what we did. But something had broken during that night mission. Some illusion that we were immortal, that the helicopter would always hold together, that we'd always make it back. We weren't immortal. The helicopters weren't invincible. We were just lucky, and luck runs out eventually. I flew 53 more missions after that night. Day and night, hot and cold. Saved maybe 100 more wounded soldiers. Lost 2 more helicopters. Lost count of how many times we took fire. Lost count of how many close calls. But we kept flying because the wounded kept needing us, because someone had to go get them, because that others may live wasn't just a motto. It was a mission, and we flew it until we couldn't fly it anymore. January 12th, 1969. My last mission. Not because I wanted it to be, because it had to be. We got called for a night medevac. Same as always. Infantry company in contact. Multiple urgent casualties. Hot LZ. We went in, same routine, flew into the darkness, followed the strobe light, took fire, loaded the wounded, got out. Everything went perfectly. No helicopter damage, no crew injuries. All casualties evacuated successfully. Perfect mission. And I broke down completely afterward. We landed back at Pleiku. I shut down the helicopter, went through the post-flight checks mechanically, everything normal, everything fine. Then I tried to get out of the pilot's seat and couldn't move. My hands were locked on the controls. My whole body was rigid. I was hyperventilating, couldn't breathe, couldn't think. Rodriguez saw it happening. "Danny? Danny, you okay?" I wasn't okay. I was having a complete panic attack in the cockpit. After a perfect mission, after everything had gone right. That's when I knew I was done, when the missions that went right were just as traumatic as the ones that went wrong, when I couldn't tell the difference anymore between success and disaster, when every flight became the same nightmare. The flight surgeon grounded me the next day, said I had acute combat stress reaction, said I needed rest, said a lot of things that all meant the same thing. I was broken. They sent me to a rear area hospital, tried to treat me, therapy, pills, rest. Nothing helped. The nightmares got worse. I'd dream I was flying missions that never ended, landing in LZs that turned into crashes, loading wounded who were already dead. I'd wake up in the hospital bed thinking I was still in the helicopter, reaching for controls that weren't there, hearing rotor sounds that weren't real. After 2 weeks, they medevaced me to Japan. After another week, they sent me home. Medical discharge, honorable service, Purple Heart for wounds received, though my wounds were mental, not physical. I flew 78 medevac missions in 10 months, evacuated maybe 300 wounded soldiers, lost 5 helicopters, had 4 emergency landings, got shot at so many times I stopped counting, saved a lot of lives, that others may live. But what about me? What about us? The crews who flew into the fire night after night. We saved lives, but what did it cost us? I was 24 years old when they discharged me, March 1969. Should have had my whole life ahead of me. Should have been excited to go home, to get out of Vietnam, to survive the war. I felt nothing, just empty, used up. Like everything that made me who I was had been burned out over those 10 months of night missions. The kid from Iowa who loved flying was gone, dead somewhere over the jungle, left behind in one of those hot LZs or crashed helicopters. What came home was something else, something hollow that looked like me but wasn't. I'm recording this in 1970. Been home from Vietnam for over a year now, 25 years old. Whole life ahead of me, except I don't have a life, not really. Just this existence where I go through the motions but don't feel anything real. I can't fly anymore. Can't even look at helicopters without having panic attacks. The sound of rotor blades sends me into flashbacks. I'm back in the jungle, back in the darkness, back in hot LZs loading wounded soldiers. I tried going back to crop dusting. Lasted 1 day. Got in the cockpit and had a complete breakdown. Haven't tried since. So flying is gone. The thing I loved, the thing I was good at. Gone because I can't separate it from the war. The nightmares come every night. I'm flying missions that never end, landing in clearings that are too small, watching the helicopter crash, watching wounded soldiers die because I can't get there fast enough. I wake up screaming, wake up in cold sweats, wake up reaching for controls that aren't there. My girlfriend left me, couldn't handle it. Couldn't handle the nightmares, the panic attacks, the times I'd just shut down and not be able to talk or move. Said she loved me, but couldn't watch me destroy myself. Can't blame her. I wouldn't want to be around me either. The VA diagnosed me with post-traumatic stress disorder, put me in group therapy with other Vietnam veterans. We sit in a circle and talk about the war, about what we saw, about what we did, about what it cost us. Some of the guys are worse off than me. Some are better. We're all broken in different ways by the same war. A helicopter pilot from my unit, guy named Williams, who flew dust-off like me, he killed himself 6 months after getting home. Couldn't handle the transition. Couldn't live with the memories. Left a note that just said, "I'm still flying." I understood that. God help me, I understood it completely. I think about those missions constantly. The successful ones and the failed ones. The wounded soldiers we saved. The helicopter crashes. The nights flying blind through the jungle. Think about the kid with no legs. Wonder if he survived. Wonder if he's somewhere dealing with his own nightmares. Wonder if he thinks it was worth it, living without legs, or if he wishes we'd just left him in that jungle. The math still doesn't work out. How many lives saved versus how many lives destroyed? Not killed, destroyed. The crews who came back broken, the pilots who can't fly anymore, the medics who can't sleep, the door gunners who jump at loud noises. We saved lives that others may live. The motto, the mission, the reason we did what we did. But we lost ourselves doing it, lost the people we used to be, lost the futures we might have had. Was it worth it? I don't know. Ask me on a good day and I'll say yes. Those 300 wounded soldiers got to go home, got to see their families, got to have lives. Ask me on a bad day and I'll tell you the cost was too high. That saving lives at the expense of your own sanity is a bad trade. That the Army took kids who loved flying and turned them into broken men who can't even hear a helicopter without panicking. Most days, I don't know what I think. Just try to get through one day at a time. Try not to hear the rotor sounds in my head. Try not to see the jungle in the darkness. Try not to dream about missions that never end. I'm 25 years old. I flew medevac helicopters in Vietnam for 10 months. 78 missions. Maybe 300 lives saved. And it destroyed me. Completely. Thoroughly. Destroyed the person I was and left behind this hollow thing that goes through the motions of living but isn't really alive. The wounded soldiers I evacuated, most of them probably don't remember me, don't remember the crew, don't remember the helicopter that saved their lives. It all blurs together in combat. One medevac is the same as another. But I remember them. Every mission, every wounded soldier, every hot LZ, every emergency landing, every night mission into the jungle. I remember all of it. Can't forget, can't let go, can't move past it. The jungle looks different at night. I said that at the beginning. And it's true. The jungle at night is something else. Something alive. Something that watches you. And when you fly over it night after night, loading wounded and dodging fire and crashing helicopters, the jungle gets inside you, gets into your head, into your dreams, into your soul. I'm home now, been home for over a year, safe. The jungle is thousands of miles away, but I'm still there, still flying those night missions, still trying to land in clearings I can barely see, still loading wounded soldiers, still crashing, still trapped in the darkness over the jungle. That others may live. We saved them. We did our mission. We brought them home. But we never came home ourselves. Part of us is still there. Still flying. Still in the jungle. Still in the darkness. The kid from Iowa who loved flying died in Vietnam. What came back was something else. Something that looks like me but isn't. Something that survived the war but didn't survive what the war did to it. I'm 25 years old. I feel ancient. The rotor sounds never stop. Even when there are no helicopters. Even when it's quiet. I hear them. Beating against the night air. Pulling me back to the jungle. To the darkness. To the missions that never end. That others may live. Beautiful words. But what about us? What about the ones who saved them? We're still flying, still in the darkness, still in the jungle, and we can't land, can't stop. Can't get home, and the mission never ends. It never ends.